Good evening, Bookends. Welcome to the Bookends podcast. This is episode 3. I am Rob, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Rose.
Hello.
How are you today, Rose?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Saturday evening. I feel good. Been reading some books. Have you?
Very good. Yeah, reading a lot of this one, actually. I've not read anything else this week.
It's a good job, isn't it, really?
It helps, yeah.
Talk about. This is episode 3, then. We are currently reading The Secret History by...
Donna Tart.
Pardon?
Not every week.
I've had too much caffeine, Rose. I'm sorry. So how the format is then is we just have a general book discussion on a general topic of the week. This week, I believe I've chosen the topic, Rose. You're next week, alternate weeks. Mm-hmm. Then we'll discuss where we are with the book. We'll discuss the last pod and how far we got, and then discuss this section of the book and talk about our thoughts for next time. And then we have a little secret bit at the end, which I'm going to surprise Rose with later.
I don't know if I'm anxious or excited, but...
I wouldn't be either, to be honest.
I've been told not to have high expectations, so...
Absolutely. So, yeah, we are reading The Secret History by Donna Tart. I'm absolutely loving it, Rose. How about you?
I am, yeah. I think I'm liking all the twists and the turns. It's not what we... in fact, I was going to say it's not what we expected, but I don't think we had any expectations because we didn't really know what it was going to be about.
And I'd even say it's like a... underrated, what's the word? Like a hidden gem, but actually...
Yeah.
It's in like the top 10 literary or something classics, modern classics. So
I'd never heard of it until you picked it. So.
Maybe it's more of an American thing. I'm not sure. Mm. So our discussion of the month. Sorry, Rose, you're going to say something then?
No, carry on.
Discussion of the week. So last week, Rose, what did we talk about?
Last week was, I think, what got us into reading.
That was it. And you said you've always been a book nerd.
Yes. I don't think they're quite my words, but I've always loved reading. Yeah, and I was saying it was Wizard of Oz for me, and I think it was Goosebumps for you, if I remember rightly, that got us.
Yes.
Well, our first book that we remember.
And what you don't know, viewers, is we had a big segment where Rose thought... Sorry, Rose.
I knew you were going to do this.
Sorry, I'll throw you in the wardrobe. Where Rose thought that Narnia was part of... No, Wizard of Oz was part of the Narnia books, and I was well shocked and felt very uneducated. But then, Rose...
So what happened was I think I was talking about Wizard of Oz and my Narnia collection, and then I thought, was it the part of it? And then Rob made it really awkward because he was Googling it at the same time as us recording, and then it was just me talking to myself with Rob just in me.
But there's nowhere that says it's not in the same universe, so you never know.
I don't think it matters. Regardless, exactly. It was still the first book that I remember enjoying, whether it was Narnia or not.
An absolute classic. Well, the film's brilliant, I must say.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I think Somewhere Over the Rainbow is probably the saddest song in the world, and I can't ever listen to it.
Well, the remake, the original's quite a nice version.
What?
The original, in the film, it's an uplifting song, isn't it? Whereas in Eva Cassidy did a really slow version of it, and then that was quite depressing.
I feel like just the lyrics itself is depressing. I don't know how they can do an uplifting version of it.
It's all about dreams, isn't it? Somewhere over the rainbow, your dreams come true. It's nice. And then when Eva Cassidy sings it, it's quite morbid.
Yeah, it's one song I could never listen to, ever. And most of the Adele album. Anyway. This is a book podcast. You never realise it, but it is. So, our discussion of the week this week is, Rose, how do we, not together, separately, how do you and I separately settle down and get in a headspace to read and concentrate on a book? It's very subjective and personal, but Rose, please go first. Tell us your routine.
Okay. It's tricky because I think it would depend what it is I'm reading. But generally I would say I would need to be somewhere quite quiet, preferably on my own. I struggle to read if other people are around because I find I can get quite grumpy if people are talking to me when I'm trying to read because I have to keep coming in and out of a book. And generally, if I'm going to sort of come away from a book, I have to do it at the end of a chapter. I really don't like having to stop mid-paragraph or mid-page or something. I'm quite funny about that. Mm-hmm. But I think before I do that, even I have to make sure that I've done stuff. So like if I've got jobs or anything that I need to be doing, I have to do that first, and then I can settle down with the book. Because otherwise I find that I'm preoccupied and I can't focus on it. So I tend to get a hot drink, sadly, I'm not 80, but a hot water bottle.
Same.
So just, yeah, and it just, I think as comfortable and as cozy as I can get, and then I think that's when I get the most out of a book, when it's just sort of as much solitude as possible, block everything else out, and just sort of get.
Have you always had that sort of routine, or has it changed as you've got older?
No, I think I've always been the same. I think maybe when I was younger, I could perhaps read more. Like obviously, when you're younger and you've got siblings and parents and stuff in the house, it's you sort of learn to read around others. But I think now, as I'm older, I'd much prefer to do it on my own and just. I like my own space.
I appreciate reading more, but also like I feel like I can't read as much as I used to read without getting tired. I'm really old.
That's true. I struggle reading in bed for that. I like the thought of going in, like getting into bed and unwinding with a book, but it doesn't last long.
Yeah.
And not only that, I then have to be mindful of what book it is, because like previously when we were reading Fairy Tale, that's quite a hefty book and it's a big hardback, and that's quite difficult to read in bed.
What, do you drop it on your face or something?
Oh, this is it. You either do that or it's quite heavy to hold. Your arms ache.
Oh, okay.
So I guess this is where the book versus Kindle argument comes into play.
And in bed, it's nice to have the backlight on the Kindle as well. That's
exactly.
Lovely.
I've got a booklight wherever.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'd show it. You can't see, but
I've tried those. But you have to like take it off every page, don't you, and put it on again?
No, not at all. You just clip it on I just clip it to a wedge of pages at the back that I'm not reading, and then you can.
Oh, I was doing it wrong then. Okay. Point. Good point.
Anyway, how about you? What do you do?
I really like to read in the bath. I love a good bath. I love a good cup of six. We sound so old, don't we? Jeez. Read. I like to have a nice bubble bath. Get a cup of tea. Read as I'm getting into the bath. Start reading. It feels amazing. Honestly, I love it. Then keep topping the hot water up as I'm reading.
I was going to say, I think that's my thing with it. I'm going to comment on bath. On a bath. I like it a lot. I think that's the thing. Like, I like the idea of it, but when I'm in it, then it starts going cold, and then I get bored, and then
you keep topping it up, and then I turn my bathroom light off. My landing light stays on, so it's dark, but I've got the backlight on the Kindle. It's very, very relaxing.
Do you not worry you'll drop it? Your Kindle?
Yeah, and if I have to check my phone, I have to place it on my chest, and it's quite messy. It can be messy, but listeners don't need to know that.
That's the other thing I was going to say, actually. No, you mentioned your phone. That's the other thing I generally try not to do when I'm reading, as I don't like. I know we do it, and it's different because obviously we're needing to talk to discuss the book, and that's quite nice. But I generally don't like messaging and notifications and stuff on my phone. I find that to be quite distracting. So I'd often put part of my routine. I tend to put my phone on mute or put it away. Yeah, just so I can properly concentrate.
Yeah, good point. I agree. And I'm saying with any distractions, I won't be able to sit in the living room with my family and read. I've tried and I can concentrate a bit, but it's not the same experience.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because I guess in that sense, reading's quite antisocial. So it's not like, I mean, I try not to be on my phone if you're in company and stuff anyway, but it's a little bit different sitting on your phone doing something than it is if you were to just be in a group of people and just get your book out. That's quite an obvious.
Absolutely.
I'm bored, not interested.
So I found, have you ever read on holiday before on the beach and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that?
Yeah. Again, it has to be the right book.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it? But
so I read loads of books on holiday years ago, and I love them. But actually, I think I didn't actually like the books. I just like the fact I was reading abroad. It's very strange. So I read Dan Brown's Angels and Demons, so it was brilliant because I was on a beach. I was hot. It was beautiful, but actually, it wasn't that much of a good book. So, random point there.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting, and I think it's having the right book in the right place sometimes as well. But yeah, no, holiday books. Sometimes you remember a book more for where you were when you read it, the book itself.
That's a very good point. I could never I don't think I could ever read on a train or a bus if I ever had to get them.
I can't travel read. I wish I could.
Yeah.
For long journeys, I really. Car sick. Yeah, I envy people that can read in a car because I would absolutely love to do that. I
knew a woman at work once, and every lunch break she'd sit in there like the cafeteria bit and read. And I tried doing it, but I can't. I'm in work mode. I can't read. It's so annoying. I've got half an hour to myself. I still can't do it.
I think that's the thing. I think again, depending on the sort of book that you've got. Like I think, like with Secret History, it's quite a. Although it's sort of getting easier read now that we're more into it, it's still not a. It's still quite a heavy book. Yeah. You can't just pick it up and read a page and put it down. Whereas I think if you've got some books that are really short chapters, if I think I've got half an hour, that's quite easy to read a bit. But often reading's quite a luxury where I think I kind of need to dedicate at least an hour or an evening to sit
it's like it's like an event in your evening, isn't it? It's like a thing. You block out an hour.
Yeah.
But I can probably do 45 minutes to an hour these days. Like, I couldn't do more. I find myself skim reading then, and I think, no, stop, Rob, you've had too much, which is such a shame as I'm getting older. Concentration spans even worse.
Yeah, I think it depends what else I'm doing. If I haven't got any plans, like I said to you last week, I read a book in a day, and that was probably throughout the course.
Insane.
Not solid, but it's just because it's a really easy read book. Like it wasn't a kid's book, but it was just an easy. I could pick it up and put it down throughout the day.
Wow.
And then I just wanted
the same impact though after only reading it, starting in the day and finishing it the same day. Does it have the same?
It did. Yeah, and I think for me, because in my head it's my second book, if you like, because obviously our book club is my main priority. It was just my sort of bit on the side, if you like. So I thought it doesn't matter if I finish it really quickly because I can go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, and I suppose, as you know, I kind of have that lack of willpower when it comes to books. So it was nice to just read a book without having you tell me to slow down or wait.
No,
as nice
good.
as it is.
It's infectious how much you love books though. Like, it's made me read a lot more, which is great, and I do love it.
Well, I'm hoping we have the same effect on others.
Like we said in the last one, like the characters, they stay in your head, don't they? Especially in this book, and you think, oh, what's going to happen? And it's so intriguing.
Yeah, but it's nice. I think this is extra nice to read because I know that you're reading it as well. So I'm reading it thinking, oh, I wonder what Rob's thinking.
Yeah, and
if
our listeners, all 5 million of them, were reading it too, that would be amazing as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, could you imagine?
So that leads us nicely onto our recap of the book thus far, or the last segment, shall we say. Rose?
Sorry, smug face there. What am I doing? Recapping where we got to last week?
Yeah. And maybe just, you know what? I know in the preview you didn't want to do this, but just a general recap of the book for anyone who's just joining. So we have a protagonist called Richard.
We do. And actually, to be fair, I'm glad that you've given me this opportunity because I need to correct myself, because I think in our first pod I had said that Richard, our protagonist, had come from England to California.
You said he came to California, and the actual book is
it'd come to England, but it's not. It's Vancouver, so it's just another. Yeah, so I got that wrong. He still travelled, but
he also called him Papin. I think his name's Papin, but not pedantic.
Listeners can give feedback. If his surname's Papen, would that be Papin or Papin? Because it's one P, so it softens the E, does it not?
Oh, okay. Wow. I didn't know there's an intellectual in our midst here. Fair enough.
3 episodes in and we've realised that I'm not.
So Richard is telling us about his younger years, and it's very clear that, well, he tells us there's been a murder, Rose, and he's part of it. And then we go back to find out about the characters involved in said murder, including the murdee. Murdee? That's not a word.
It is for now. We can introduce the word.
So Richard is gone to a fancy university, or is it secondary school?
So in our latest few chapters, they're 20, so it's university. Yeah.
He's gone to a fancy university that he can't afford, but he's got a special scholarship, and he gets in with these 5 other intellectuals who are very, very posh, but nice people in general. A bit strange, but nice. They study ancient Greek with their professor called Julian. It's a very select group, but he somehow gets in there. And then we spend half the book learning all about these characters and their intricacies and their secrets. Rose?
So Richard is in with these guys now. And I think last week we were just recapping about how Richard had been a bit of an outcast from these group over the last sort of few weeks, hadn't they? They'd spent the summer doing various stuff that hadn't included him. Yeah. And I think I'd said I felt like there was a bit of gaslighting going on, that they were sort of wanting him there and then they weren't, and then they were best friends with him and then they disappeared, and then we were feeling as readers quite excluded from everything. And then the 5 friends have come back and have just told Richard now that they had some sort of alcohol and drug induced sort of spiritual ritual that they created amongst themselves, didn't they, as part of some experiment. And during this sort of wild drunken night, they accidentally killed a farmer.
As you do.
And then, as you do, yeah, that's standard night.
But Richard wasn't involved, was he? Richard wasn't there.
No, so Richard wasn't there, and Bunny wasn't there.
Who's Bunny?
Bunny being the guy who we know right at the beginning of the book is the friend that's been murdered. So Bunny and Richard both weren't at this ritual. Richard's been told about it, and Bunny's aware of it, and he had been basically sort of blackmailing and making jokes and sort of threatening, I guess, implying that he was going to sort of report them and that they should go to the police. And therefore the other guys, Henry, who've we got? Henry, Francis, Charles, and Camilla. Again, not linked.
Not the royalty.
Not the royalties.
Yeah. So just to get it straight then. So Bunny it's on his conscience that they've killed someone. Bunny wasn't involved, but he knows about it. He's not best pleased. He's choosing it as an opportunity to manipulate the gang and get lots of money off them. But he's doing it he's not really doing it subtly, is he? But it's not like he's blackmailing them directly. But he's sort of leading them to a way where they have to kind of take him on these holidays and buy him things.
I think they're worried about him, aren't they? And Henry particularly is very much disliking Bunny and making that very well known to the rest of the group, that are then starting to dislike Bunny even more as well.
We've all had that one friend where we just we don't know.
Just want to kill them.
You can't trust them at all. Like, you can't leave them in a room with your mom or something. You can't trust them to say.
It's weird because
Richard also wasn't involved in the murder, and his instinct wasn't to do that and tell anybody and manipulate them. But Bunny's was. But Bunny's known them a lot longer.
But Richard, I think, because I think that was the passage that I read out last week, where Richard was unsure why he was friends with these people, wasn't it? He was sort of doubting his involvement in his decisions to be friends, but equally doesn't walk away from them and he stays.
Yeah. Why do you think he's friends with them then? I'll give my 2 pennies worth in a bit, but why do you think he started the friendship?
I don't know. I don't know if he sort of perhaps identifies with them as sort of being these outsiders. He didn't really have a place, did he, before he came to the school? And even right at the beginning of the book, his initial take up of Greek was purely because it was in the afternoon and it meant he could have a lay-in. So he didn't even have like the interest in Greek, but just happened to be good at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was lost at first, wasn't he? And obviously people with a shared interest as him, and then making friends. And now he's kind of realised what they're all about. It's probably too late to go back. And it's probably quite exciting for him as well.
Yeah, well, even more so now that he's embroiled in this.
And we spoke about our moral compass ourselves, where like I was saying, like I should feel bad and want to be on Bunny's side, but actually I'm not. I'm on Henry's side and Richard's side. I want them to conceal it and get away with a murder, which I don't know why I feel like that, because in real life I'd want to tell the police.
Yeah, of course.
What about you?
It's strange. I think the relationship with Bunny is weird, because you really liked Henry. I think last week you were saying you were quite taken to Henry, whereas I find him to be quite, I don't know, he's so cold. Like, he just seems very detached from everything. It seems very cool, and I would say he's quite calm and collected with it, but I don't know, there's something quite unsettling about how nonchalant he is about such stuff, like a murder. And
that's becoming more apparent as we read the book, isn't it?
Yeah. So I guess I can put you on the spot now. Do you want to do a summary of what we've read since?
Yes. So last review, then Bunny hadn't yet died, although we know he's dead. He hadn't yet died. But we know that Bunny was sort of like going on trips and taking advantage of everyone and their money. But since then, Bunny's became more and more, here's a word, abhorrent. Is that appropriate? Yeah.
Yeah.
And detestable. He's goading them. So, for example, there's a passage where he's even like goading Richard now. So like Richard's really subconscious because he's in a school on a scholarship and everyone else there is very rich, and their all parents are all rich, and Bunny kind of knows that Richard's parents aren't rich. So in front of everybody he's like, oh, so what do your parents do? And do you went to this fancy college, did you? Well, who do you know? This person? And Richard obviously lied to try and sound cool, and he's really calling, like, he's just being very manipulative and very cold. And we've all had a friend like that that's just an absolute bleep, you know. And he's doing it really, really subtly, and he's getting under everyone's skin, and it's getting quite scary to the lengths that Bunny's going to now to manipulate and put people on edge.
He's making himself really vulnerable, isn't he, without knowing it? I think because the friends are already on edge with him, and now he's just sort of, and it's not even one of them. He's literally done sort of humiliated them one by one,
Yeah, he was said a very, very horrible sexist comment to Camilla as well. Very nasty. I didn't like that. And obviously the gang would usually pull him up on it, but they can't, because if they piss him off too much, then he could report it to the police what they're doing. So everyone is on eggshells. It's a horrible situation. I really felt it. I really felt the tension in the room. And then so we learn more and more about how Bunny's, being very reckless. And then he tells Richard, because he doesn't know Richard knows about the murder. So when Bunny's drunk one night, he tells Richard everything. Richard then tells Henry, who's the main gang leader, and that there is a catalyst where Henry thinks if he's told you, Richard, that's the start of him opening up and telling a lot more people. We need to start acting now, because it's going to get out of hand very quick. What were your thoughts around that time?
I was literally just going to ask you the same question, because obviously from Henry realising that Bunny's starting to talk effectively when he's only mentioned it to Richard, you don't know that he's going to tell anyone else, but Henry doesn't want to take that risk.
No.
From here, he then basically starts plotting how to kill Bunny, doesn't he? And that they sort of make a mutual decision that Bunny needs to disappear, and how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
To the extent that Henry then comes to Richard asking him about how much of a certain mushroom do you think you'd need to sort of kill someone or maim them or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I understood Henry's concern, and I got that Bunny was being like, was being awful, and I can't imagine that you'd want somebody like that around. But I just felt like to jump from being frustrated with him for that to like planning to kill him was quite a jump. I don't know if I was expecting something bigger to be the reason why they needed to kill him, or just the fact that they thought that he was going to tell that they'd killed someone else, so they just thought we'll bump him off as well.
But he was up in the game, wasn't he? So he was goading them a lot more. I do agree with Henry that telling Richard is a huge sign. Like telling Richard was like the litmus test. Like, how would Richard react? Who am I going to tell next? I think he had to interject at that point. Speaking from a murderer's mindset, if I could ever go there, then that was the thing where enough's enough now. Our plan isn't working. We're trying to keep him sweet. It is not working. We're going to be in trouble any day now. Personally.
Yeah, and I guess they can't keep it up because they were running out of money as well, weren't they? That was the other thing. They couldn't continue keeping him sweet. And
with Bunny getting drunk every night, and it all comes out when you're drunk, doesn't it? So that's what made Henry really start to panic. So he had this plot to poison him with mushrooms, but like Henry said, it was all just too perfect, really. And when it's too planned and too perfect, things go wrong, which is very interesting. Thinking like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Henry was scarily calculated with it, wasn't he? He's very clever, but not. He's out of all of them. I think all of them have sort of shown signs of anxiety and angst about it, and whether they have sort of questioned whether they should be doing it. Whereas Henry's not wavered once, has he? He's very much set on it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And in the chapters that we've read, they have actually now killed Bunny, haven't they?
Yeah. So really, really clever. Really, how they did it. I think. He was drunk. He was walking along the cliffside. He met them. This is a regular walk that he does. He met them at this cliff edge-ish. I guess they walked him nearer there, and then one of them just pushed him, I think
was it Henry that did it? Yeah.
Yeah. So he obviously, when he is eventually found out, he's going to have alcohol in his system. It's going to be a cold, it was slippy underneath and stuff. It could easily look like he fell. There's going to be no evidence that he was pushed. No fingerprints. No nothing. Very, very clever way of doing it. And they can still stick to all of their stories to say, yes, he was being very strange. Yes, that if they stick to their story totally, except the last bit where they met him and pushed him, really, I can't see how they're going to get caught.
I'm thinking that, and they've got some. So since that, I think they've covered themselves quite well. Yeah. But I think there's a guy who works at the fuel station that somehow thinks that he saw him being kidnapped. So that's helping them being sort of their cover story, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a new guy, isn't there, called Cole or Coke or something? Something about, and he's a drug
Cloak
dealer.
Or something. Yeah.
And he's kind of getting framed now for saying that drug dealers got Bunny and that Bunny was druggy. So it's all being misleading, and the gang look quite clear at the moment. But
and they've not found Bunny yet, have they either? Sorry, I spoke over you.
It's been snowing really bad, so they haven't found out where he is. And I feel like I think the only thing that's going to slip them up is each other. I think the tension's going to boil over. And you know what? I'll talk about predictions in a minute. Actually, carry on, Rose.
I was going to say on predictions last week, I was thinking that Julian was going to sort of come back to the scene a bit more this week, but he hasn't. Not really.
He's slowly getting mentioned a bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't know that Julian's the leader of the
teacher,
Greek,
isn't he?
The teacher, yes. So he's not involved in the gang, but he's their teacher. He knows that Bunny's disappeared. Doesn't know that he's been murdered or anything. He's quite concerned about Bunny, but he's kind of excited by it all, isn't he? Like the murder, the mystery of where he is and stuff. Yeah, I think he'll still have a big part to play in it.
We've still got a fair bit of the. We've still got a fair bit of the book left.
Book.
It is, but I think we've made good progress. But I'm quite intrigued to see what else is going to transpire from it.
So my predictions will be that. Well, do you want to talk about your predictions first, Rose?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the rest of the book would be maybe them growing up and getting older and all the repercussions that come from it and the tensions and things. And I think they'll end up falling out. And I think someone's going to grass Henry in, to be honest. Or my second prediction is that, like, I feel like if they could throw Richard under the bus, they would. If Richard was a suspect, because he wasn't even there, was he? I just feel like Henry, Camilla, Charles, and Francis are very close, and they could easily push Richard under the bus for something and get him in trouble. That's my theory.
Possibly, but I don't know whether the gang will distance from Henry a bit, because the twins are quite close with Richard. Francis has kissed Richard, hasn't he? So he clearly likes Richard. So they had a bit of a thing. And then I think Francis also got annoyed with Henry, when he was wanting to sleep and Henry was ringing and sort of dictating and telling them what to do.
Yeah.
I think they've all felt a bit frustrated with him, and so I don't know whether they'll whether that will happen and they'll sort of detach a bit from Henry and Club together.
Yeah. I think it'll be definitely I reckon that we'll talk about when they're getting older and the next year at uni and the tensions that arise from it, really, and maybe the guilt will set into a lot of them about what when the parents find out the bunny's dead, how awful it's going to be. And in one bit of the book at the start so it's split into two parts, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
So we're on part 2, and it does say the first few pages of part 2 he said that the first murder was bad, the second one was easier, and it just alludes that maybe there's a third murder. Did you see that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure, and I also
I love it, dear. I love it.
I did pick that up, but I'm also keep coming back to the title, which isn't always the best thing to do, but I'm not quite sure where the secret history, what that alludes to, or whether it's just the history of their friendship.
Right,
or,
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know, or it might have nothing to do with it, and it might be a bit of a point.
So yeah, I think the next 100 pages will be the repercussions of Bunny's dead, blah blah blah. But then what the next 300 pages is going to be about?
Who knows? Because we don't.
And if Henry can be that cold and calculated for that, I mean, how he's going to grow up? What's he going to end up like when he's older?
Well, it'd be interesting where Richard's writing it from, because he could be in prison. You never know.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
But it says, doesn't it, that in one part that none of them grow up to be very successful. It says, doesn't it? Which is interesting.
I don't think it's going to have a happy ending, put it that way. I can't imagine that they're all going to be living together or having like all close friends and they got.
And even if they get away with the murder, I'd imagine the guilt is just going to eat them alive. Eat them alive, terrible. And maybe actually going to prison for, I suppose it's America, so it'd be a long time, but in England probably for that. Well, depends, doesn't it? You get to prison for like 10 years. Maybe that would be easier than the guilt they live with for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks I don't think they will get away with it. I think that it'd be quite an odd book to write about it. Say we killed someone and got away with it at the end. I think there's got to be some repercussion for what they've done.
Yeah, it might be the emotional impact, I feel, rather than physical. But also, I don't know if you got to this bit, Rose, but
don't spoil it.
In one of the news articles, it says about the brutal, like, what was it? What word did they use?
Which one?
One of the articles said, like, basically he was the guy that got murdered was butchered. The farmer.
Yes, yeah.
Or mauled, whatever.
Yeah.
It makes me think: is there something more going to come out about them, that actual murder? Like, were they off it as much as they said? What did Henry do? Because he was like, his stomach was open and all sorts, apparently. So.
Yeah, it might be more to Henry. That Henry knows what happened and nobody else does, or he's Yeah, that's a good shout. I don't know.
It's very good though. It's very dark. I like dark.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a really odd book to be reading, because it's sort of one of those books that feels that it's slow, but so much is happening. If that makes sense. Like it is just them at school, and you think to explain it to someone, it doesn't sound that interesting, but there's so much going on in the mundane sort of days at university. They've got all this stuff happening.
How awful, like, you know, for Richard especially, he hasn't murdered anybody. He probably wouldn't have, even if he was drunk and drugged up. He's having to like feel guilty and go along with this lie. It's be horrible. And even for even everyone involved, like if they were so hammered and they don't remember it, and then they wake up and you murder someone, like how awful would that be? Like we have dreams, don't we, where something bad's happened and we wake up thinking, oh crap.
Yeah.
But the guilt was eating them alive, man.
Well, especially for when they haven't got all the information, for the first one anyway, but for the Bunny one, I think, like I said, there's a lot of them that are having they're wanting to talk about it, aren't they, and they question it, and Henry's just not wanting to discuss it and just think, well, it's done now, there's no point talking about it, let's just move on. But a lot of them are stuck in quite a difficult place.
I'd be the worst murderer, honestly. I don't think I could. I couldn't do it.
No, that's good to know.
Yeah. No, it's awful.
It's reassuring.
It takes a really calculated person, doesn't it, to do that? Jeez.
I think the anxiety would be,
the guilt as well. Every morning you're waking up thinking what you've done.
I'd be thinking everyone's involved and trying to like find out what happened, or
you'd be scared for your life too, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So the takeaway is then, bookenders, don't murder.
Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. We don't condone.
I do think, though, if you think that how much this book is generating in us to question it and how much emotion we felt reading it, it's really well written, isn't it? You've got to think of it. Because I think even the mannerisms and stuff of all the friends, the different people, just how it's written, you can see it all and visualize it as you're reading.
The main, it's just like when I know the police are questioning them and stuff, the tension I feel for them and how I want them to get away with it. But in real life, I wouldn't. It's hard when the protagonists are kind of bad. And but you kind of invested, so you kind of want to be on their side. It's really hard.
Yeah, I think Richard's very likable, isn't he? He seems.
Yeah, which is strange because in the first few paragraphs he wasn't very likable. I thought he was very pompous, but then he's met more pompous people.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Henry.
So my secret.
Oh, the surprise!
My secret history. Again, bookenders and Rose, don't get too excited.
Too late. Buzzing. What is it?
Bear with me. Dear RCW Literary Agency, my name is Rob, and I currently host a podcast called the Bookends Podcast on a weekly basis with my co-host, Rose, co-host to the host. We discuss everything book related and review a book. We are currently reviewing The Secret History by Donna Tart. Pardon? And we absolutely love it. It would be amazing to have her on our show for half an hour via telephone call or Teams meeting. Is there any way of contacting her agent or something? So I Googled Donna Tart email address, and then the RCW Literary Agency came up.
Have you actually sent this?
Yeah. So from Cara Jones. Dear Rob, many thanks for the billow. It's lovely to hear you are reviewing The Secret History on your podcast. Although I am sorry to let you know that Donna Tart doesn't give interviews unless she has a new book to promote. No news on that yet, so we live in hope. All the best, Cara.
Oh my God, I got really excited then.
Yeah.
You were going to say
well, I did Google her, and she is ominously not reclusive, but she doesn't give interviews at all. She's very like us.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think part of me might have been a little bit disappointed if she was available next week for our podcast, just sitting around to join us.
I think that was her agent or a company that. So we get. Who knows next time?
That is amazing. That is amazing.
If Stephen wants to.
I was just about to say, I don't know if Stephen will come on because the only thing we've said about him so far is that his book wasn't great.
It's Steve, by the way. Me and Steve. Next week, get Ron Dahl on. Who knows?
Is he still alive?
No. But I tried for us, Rose. I did try.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's amazing. Yeah, I got really excited thinking she was coming on,
and she's a bit of a looker as well, Donna Tart. Let me tell you.
Is she?
Yeah, she's have a Google. And
I'm gonna have a look.
This isn't her most famous book either. She's got an even more famous book. I don't know what it's called. Bear with.
Okay, so you've researched it well. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe
we could do that one. Oh no, we need to
next.
Not next. We've got to break it up a little bit. I think it's my turn next, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it. I
might try and find a looker. Maybe that can be our theme.
Donna Tart. Oh, Donna Tart answers 11 questions about the secret history. That was 1 month ago.
Well, she's not so reclusive, is she? She can
No,
do that.
maybe
Can't
not.
come on a podcast.
So her most famous one is a book called The Goldfinch. The Times called it a masterpiece. Daily Mail calls it superb, and it was the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction 2014. So there we go. But luckily, at least it didn't say unfortunately Donna Tart has fell off a cliff and died. So at least she's alive.
That's true. And like I say, she might do another book. So, but maybe we can put a pen in for, what did you say it was called? The Goldfinch.
The Goldfinch, yes. So
where's Rory? Is Rory about?
Rory,
Making
drop that on the iPad. The iPad. He's getting some sticky notes out. Yeah, she hasn't done many books actually, maybe 4 or 5. But I mean, she writes really well, doesn't she? Really like it.
Oh, that's really cool. Thanks for doing that. Speaking of socials, we haven't had masses of activity. I'm trying my best to try and get us out there to hit our 1 million views, which we're not quite there yet, but I think 10 maybe.
Yeah, so I've had to change it from our old the way we were doing it before. Basically, we have to change servers. So I think I don't know if we're back on YouTube, Spotify yet. But it has to basically change. Basically, it's quite difficult to understand it when you first start it, but I think it might have changed. But we'll let you all know about that. But
links will go out to well, it doesn't matter. I could say tomorrow, but it's going to be today for when they listen to it, isn't it? So
yeah. So tell your friends about the podcast. I feel like we're getting better at this, Rose. Your setup's got better. My setup's got better.
I thought we're looking semi-professional now, I feel.
Yeah, I think we sound good. We're learning things. So, yeah, I'm looking on Spotify, and we're not on there when you type in the Bookends podcast, so I need to look into that.
That's a worry. That's the plan for you tonight.
Yeah. So, yeah, we should have finished the Secret History, hopefully, by 2 podcast time. Yeah,
I need to be looking for our next book so that we've got that in good time.
And if we do a post saying like, can any suggestions, that'd be cool as well. But there's a plethora of books out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, sensible suggestions. I think there's a few that you definitely won't read.
Yeah, we should probably do a smaller book next time. Whiz through the talking about it and get it done.
Well, so I think if you go for a book that's about 300 pages, that gives us 2, maybe 3 pods per book.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Great. So yeah, there's no passage to read this week, but we'll find out for next time.
Yeah.
And we might introduce a bit of poetry one of the days, Rose, I think.
Yeah, what have you got for us?
Well, I've many times on the drafts for this, I've put Rose's poetry corner, and you said, "Oh, not yet." So.
Okay, I'll work on it. Is it actually my own poetry, or can I find a poem to read out?
Your own poetry, that'll be fantastic.
Well, I haven't recently, but maybe I'll find a nice poem.
Yeah, I love a good poem.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cat sat on the mat.
Is that a poem?
Rose's haiku corner. That'd be cool.
Oh no, I don't like a haiku. No, I get a decent poem.
That'd be nice. That'd be lovely. Okay, so yeah, it's been amazing. Rose, any closing thoughts?
No, just please follow us, like us, comment on our pods, give us any feedback, good or bad. It's always appreciated.
Yes, so someone called our podcast cozy, and I love that. So, but also bad feedback is good too.
Well, we got a comment out which someone said they loved it. Looking forward to the next one, so that's always good. Thank you out there for that.
What was the criticism? Was there something someone said?
I can't remember, which is really bad that we can
remember the good bit.
Yeah. We did get a slight criticism, but I can't remember now what it was. But overall, I think we're doing okay. It's very amateur, and that's fine by me.
Yeah, this isn't our main job, is it? It's just a bit of fun.
No, not yet.
Imagine.
One day.
Right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Cool. Bye.